when you were waking up and you knew that it was the first full Sunday of games for the NFL?
Oh, absolutely. Any football fan, any football reporter would tell you, Christina, it's like Christmas morning, right? When you were a kid, you couldn't wait. You couldn't wait for Santa's gifts. You couldn't wait to unwrap that. And you got a full slate of games today, and it's going to be exciting. We got it kicked off Thursday night with a great matchup, Friday night with a great matchup, but this is it. This is where any football fan, fantasy fan, people who are betting on games, everybody is locked in, tuned in. This is why the NFL rules American sports.
Absolutely. And so I know people are probably already annoyed. We're only 10 minutes into the show, but I'm going to keep talking about the Falcons. I have to say it, Rob. I'm excited to see this game that they're taking off. They're going to be facing off against their neighbors to the south there, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you expect to see from this? I have a lot of hope in Michael Penix Jr., who's going to be taking the helm as the starting quarterback. It's going to be exciting to see what he's able to bring to the team on that side. But what else do you see from both of these teams during this matchup?
Christina, I think for you and all Falcons fans, the future is going to be bright with Michael Penix Jr. I really believe that Michael Penix is a quarterback who can help lead this team back to prominence. And this is going to be it's a tough week one matchup for him. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have owned the NFC South. They've won the division 4 years in a row. But on the flip side, the Falcons have had the Buccaneers number. They beat them twice last year. Kirk Cousins had two amazing games, threw for almost 800 yards, 8 touchdowns. It's not Kirk, it's Michael Penix going out there. You can expect Michael to try to look to throw the ball deep to Drake London. He does not have today, he's not going to have Darnell Mooney as a receiver. He's injured, he's going to be out, so that's sort of a blow. But I think this offense for the Atlanta Falcons, as much as we look at quarterbacks, as much as we look at the potential that Michael Penix Jr. has and his ability to throw the ball and create plays, and I believe Kyle Pitts at tight end entering his 5th season, he's kind of on a what am I going to do for the future, right? Kind of trying to earn his next contract, can live up to that first-round pick potential. But for me, this Falcons offense, until Michael Penix gets more comfortable, builds more chemistry, he had the whole offseason, but he needs game action, more experience, it's going to revolve around their all-world running back, Bijan Robinson. And that's a great thing to have. When you have someone who is that talented, that much of a playmaker, I know he was atop a lot of people's fantasy boards, Bijan Robinson, he can run the ball, he can catch the ball, he can do so many things. I expect a heavy dose of handing the ball to Bijan Robinson. Now, on the other side, defensively, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've got a dynamic offense with Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Mike Evans. They drafted a first-round pick at wide receiver in Ibuka, and they've got a lot that they can do offensively. The biggest question marks for them is on the defensive side of the ball. They brought in a veteran pass rusher, edge rusher, in Hassan Reddick. He's out there to try to prove that last season was a mess for him. He held out. He was traded, first of all, from the Eagles to the Jets. He held out. He missed most of the season. He got in there, and he didn't live up to his Pro Bowl potential. He's on a 1-year deal, and I believe he's going to try and bring the heat for sure. He's going to try and go out there and continue to prove he's an elite pass rusher, so he can be in the backfield quite often, especially with some problems on that offensive line, some injuries for the Falcons, but it's the secondary for the Buccaneers. This is a secondary that was decimated last year by injury that Kirk Cousins picked apart. They've added some pieces. They've got some young guys, but this is an area where they could be vulnerable. So it's going to be a real intriguing matchup. I pick every game, Christina. I have to make my picks on every game on a Wednesday, and this was tough for me, going back and forth. I could see it going either way. Would not surprise me. I took the Buccaneers. Wouldn't surprise me if the Falcons continue to show that they're the dominant team in this matchup.
Robbie just broke my heart a little bit, but I'm going to let it slide because we have so many more other teams to break down as well. And so let's get into it because I'm excited to see this. Listen, Joe Burrow, Cool Joe, as they like to call him, he's going to be leading this matchup as the Bengals are going to be facing off against the Browns. I want to put this up on the screen so folks can see it. He's already ready. Like, he looks locked in, and so I know that they're hoping for a successful season, especially behind him. I was watching and reading some of his interviews that he was doing ahead of the season start, saying he wouldn't be out there playing if he didn't think that they didn't have a chance to win the Super Bowl each and every year. But again, Myles Garrett and the Browns, they want their respect as well. What do you see from this matchup that we're going to be watching here at 1 o'clock?
First of all, Christina, I don't know about you, but the one thing with Joe Burrow, that I look forward to the most is to see his fit when they flash the picture, what he's wearing to the stadium. Like, I always wanted, it's always intriguing to me because he's one of the more fashionable players in the NFL. But fashion aside, I look at Joe Burrow as a guy who obviously he's locked in. He wants to get back to the Super Bowl where they went a few years ago, and they've started this season poorly historically under Zach Taylor as the head coach, and that's why Joe Burrow and the starters played this year in the preseason to go out there to get some of those reps, to get comfortable with each other, build that chemistry, make sure that they're ready to go week one. They can't afford to go out there and let down. Last year they started 0-3. They won their last 5 games to finish 9-8, but it was too little too late and they couldn't get into the playoffs. The offense is loaded with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. I expect them to put up a lot of points. The question mark has always been with the Bengals, can they stop teams from scoring points on the other side? They gave up 30-plus points often last year, several times in 4 losses, I believe, in a 7-game span. The good thing for them, the good news for Bengals fans, Trey Hendrickson solved his, for 1 year only, his contract situation. He'll be back. He led the NFL. He was an All-Pro last year, led the NFL in sacks. So that's going to be helpful to have him out there. And from the Browns standpoint, Joe Flacco's 40 years old. I think it's a matter of time, and he's done it for 18 years, and credit to him, kudos to him. South Jersey guy, I spent most of my life in South Jersey, but at some point, I believe the Browns are going to transition to Dylan Gabriel and then Shedeur Sanders. You mentioned Myles Garrett. That's the one player on the Browns that every team has to be wary of. He's an absolute game wrecker. He could take a team's game plan and just destroy it with one hit on the quarterback. You've got to be mindful of where he is. You can't block him one-on-one. You've got to block him. You need a tight end, a running back, everybody helping the tackle, try to keep Myles Garrett away from Joe Burrow.
And so wanted to put this up on the screen as well. Cleveland Browns are clearly excited about their star player as well, saying time to suit up. And so, Rob, as we're continuing to talk through some of these games, I do want to talk about they're in the NFC South still, and just some of those other teams that are, I shouldn't say the NFC South, but they're in Florida. We do know that the Panthers are going to be facing off against the Jaguars. It's going to be interesting here as we're looking at this game because honestly, we have 2 Heisman Trophy winners facing off. Of course, we've seen Bryce Young. He's kind of grown into himself over the last few years, but really folks are wondering to see how he's going to be playing. But Travis Hunter is the real focus here. What do you expect from some of these matchups?
Yeah, when you look at Travis Hunter in this matchup, we all want to know, how are the Jaguars going to deploy Travis Hunter today in this game, in the first game? And it appears that he's going to be an every down wide receiver, not just a slot receiver, not just in certain. It appears they're going to put him out there, and he's such a playmaker. Why would you not want to have him out there? But he also plays quarterback. And maybe, I believe initially they're going to have him in certain nickel situations defensively, playing the outside cornerback spot where Jordan Lewis slides in to the slot. So he'll play situationally on defense, but I think we should all expect to see Travis Hunter out there on offense and taking a whole lot of snaps. And what they got to do is get the ball in his hands. He's a playmaker. He proved that at Colorado. He won a Heisman Trophy for a reason. So my expectation is that we're going to see a lot of Travis Hunter out there. And on the other side, Bryce Young, as you said, kind of came into his own. He was benched last year. Some folks thought that's the end of Bryce Young in Carolina. But no, he took a step back under a first-year head coach in Dave Canales, who's had a history of developing young quarterbacks and even veteran quarterbacks. He took Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay and helped resurrect his career. So Bryce Young had an opportunity to sit back, watch a little bit, come back into the lineup later in the season, and the Panthers got progressively better and better. It wasn't reflective in the one-loss record because they still lost some games, but there was a 3-game span there where they almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They almost beat the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is a team that I believe is on the rise. A lot of high expectations in Carolina. They spent a lot of money on the defensive side of the ball, $150 million invested in free agency. The 2 worst defenses in the NFL, by the way, Christina, last year are facing off in this one. And all we can talk about usually is the quarterbacks and the playmakers, but we got to see what the defenses can do to help these teams stay competitive. And of course, that's where Travis Hunter comes in. As a quarterback, he can help the Jaguars as well as he helps them on the offense. He can certainly help that defense.
I'm excited to see what he does out there, regardless of whether they win, lose, draw, whatever. I just want to see these guys get out in the field and really see something we haven't seen in quite some time there in the NFL. And so I do want to focus on this last game before we kind of hit on another topic that we'll bring up. But lastly, I want to talk about the Seahawks and the 49ers. They're facing off. This is a big deal for the Niners in the sense that Christian McCaffrey is limited in this game. What do you think, and how do you think that's going to be affecting their kickoff as they're looking to really go for the championship, as always, they with that Niner team?
Christina, from Christian McCaffrey's standpoint, I hate this for him. He's such a dynamic player, and when he's healthy, he's got Hall of Fame potential. And we saw how last year, his last full year, healthy 2 years ago, he was the AP Offensive Player of the Year. He even was in the top 5 in MVP voting. But then last year, he was sidelined by injuries, only played 4 games. And the fact that it's a calf, and last year he had some Achilles problems, it's a real concern how they're going to manage this. I just hope that he's able to get through this season healthy and we see what he can do. But when he's not in the lineup, he's such a dynamic player. Certainly the 49ers offense and the game plan takes a step back. They did make that deal, brought in Brian Robinson Jr. to be his backup. So they do have a little bit of depth there. They traded Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
He's not going to be around as a wide receiver. So it really changes things for the 49ers not to have not just their best player on offense, but one of the best players that we've seen in the NFL in a generation. So I hope he can get out there healthy and we can see what he can do. And from a Seahawks standpoint, first game for Sam Darnold. Mm-hmm. So all eyes are going to be on him. What's he going to do in Seattle after getting a new contract?
Absolutely. And I'm so sorry, Rob. We do have a shot of President Trump speaking, so we have to go to that at this point. Hang on here on the Zoom for just a second. I'll talk to you behind the scenes, but we're going to go to this live vantage point there. This just happened out of Washington, D.C. We're seeing President Trump answering questions. Let's listen.
Excuse me. Do you know how many people were killed in Chicago last weekend? 8. Do you know how many people were killed in Chicago the week before? 7. Do you know how many people were wounded? 74 people were wounded. You think there's worse than that? I don't think so. We'll respond to that later.
Are you considering attacking the cartel inside of Venezuela?
What are you going to find out? Say it? I don't know anything about that. I had a great conversation with them. Say hello to him. He's a good man.
All right, as you see there, just listening in to President Trump as he's answering some of those questions before he departed for Air Force One and then taking off. But so we did want to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox. Of course, you know, that's really our bread and butter as well. But wanted to make sure we got that in so we don't miss any of those remarks when President Trump speaks. Want to make sure that we take those remarks to see if there are any major developments. In the meantime, though, we were still hanging out with Rob Maaddi, AP NFL reporter here, talking a lot about what we're seeing there with the NFL. So we're going to cut back to this for just a second. Rob, I have to ask you, before I let you go, we watched that major matchup that happened this week between the Cowboys and the Eagles. And while the game on the field turned out to be a very dynamic one, the storyline that sort of usurped things there was the confrontation between both Dak Prescott and Jalen Carter. What else do we know about that? What have you figured out in the last few days as we've been dissecting what we saw on the field?
Well, Christina, the NFL made sportsmanship a point of emphasis this year. And right from the start of the season, we saw unsportsmanlike conduct from Jalen Carter spitting on Dak Prescott. Now, Dak Prescott, obviously, we saw his role in it, walked up, spit towards the ground. That kind of irritated Jalen Carter, who thought he was spitting at him in his direction. We saw what transpired. So the NFL wants to emphasize sportsmanship. They are going to, I would absolutely believe that they're going to fine Jalen Carter, and a suspension is not considered unlikely. However, in the past, there is no precedent for anyone who has spit on another player to be suspended. There's always been fines. T.O. was fined $35,000 once for spitting on D'Angelo Hall. Bill Romanowski, other players who've done it have been fined. So if the NFL tries to suspend Jalen Carter, sort of make an example in this year where it's a point of emphasis, the NFLPA, the Players Association, is going to appeal, and it'll come down to whether or not the suspension is upheld. So I believe that he'll get fined. I don't anticipate that he's going to sit out another game. He already missed the Cowboys game because he was disqualified. He was ejected from that one. The Eagles are playing the Chiefs in a Super Bowl rematch coming up here in week 2. Not having their best defensive player, Jalen Carter, out there would certainly impact things a big way. But the league has made it clear we are not going to stand for any inappropriate gestures, any kind of violent gestures, anything along those lines, and certainly spitting on another player violates sportsmanship. So they can certainly offer him or attempt to a hefty fine and then potentially a suspension, and we'll see if it can get upheld.
And of course, we know that we heard from Dak Prescott there after the game, speaking on the incident. It was interesting to watch, but certainly something that we'll continue to follow. And as always, we appreciate being here with us, the AP NFL writer, Rob Monty. You have the best takes, Rob, and so much information. So we're always grateful when you can join the show with us here for Football Sunday. Now, this is just the beginning. So if folks are ready to make sure that they can follow you on all of your accounts as well, again, Rob has all of the inside information when it comes to those headlines.
Thanks so much, Christina.
All right, we did want to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox. And football